Hello, and welcome to Antisocial Studies. I'm Emily Glankler. I am the voice and creator behind the renowned history podcast, Antisocial Studies. And I'm here to give you some really quick overviews about the AP history exams. So, in this, I'm going to try to keep it pretty general. We're going to talk about anything that applies to all of the AP history tests, AP World, AP Euro, and AP US, even though I teach AP World History. So, if I give any examples, that's probably where the content's going to come from. Let's get through this as quickly as possible. The topic for today is how to study. So I've been getting a lot of questions from students and teachers about what they should be doing over the next few weeks as we get ready for the AP History exams, which are now about a month away. So let me give you my advice. First, what does the test look like? Hopefully you know this by now, but it's going to be a 5-document DBQ. You will get 45 minutes to read, organize, and write your DBQ. It's going to be okay, don't worry. And then you'll get 5 minutes to upload that because you will be taking these tests online. You'll be taking them for the most part at home, typing or handwriting, although I highly recommend typing. But my strategy will come in another episode. You can see at the bottom what units are covered for your class, depending on whether you take World or US or Euro. Basically, what they did was they took out the last few units of each class, assuming that a lot of courses might not have gotten there before the plague hit. Now, the rubric for all of the history tests are the same, and they're now based on a 10-point rubric. I'm going to be breaking down this rubric point by point in my next few episodes, but just notice that the biggest change is that you now can get more points for documents, for bringing in outside evidence, and for evaluating those documents, which I call HIP, evaluating the historical context or intended audience or point of view. Again, my next few episodes on this YouTube channel are going to be one episode for each of these points. So for now, let's just talk about what you need to do to start studying for this weird new test. So first, here's one way to think about the rubric, right? A lot of students have been reaching out to me saying, well, now that it's just a DBQ, I don't really have to study anymore, right? Because the information will all be in the documents. Not really. Here's why. There's basically been a 50-50 split. So about half of the points still emphasize content, right? 4 out of the 10 still emphasize content, right? You can get content from, let's say, context, right? You can use content for outside evidence, right? You're definitely not gonna be able to pull in outside evidence if you don't know anything about history. And for sure, you can't get that weird unicorn complexity point if you don't know the content very well. Now, one of the things a lot of people might be bringing up is that this is an open book, open note test, which is true, but they've only given you 45 minutes. So if you are really just relying on waiting to see what the question is and then going and reading that section of your textbook again or whatever, you're going to run out of time. So it's still really important to be reviewing some content so that you can know what you're looking for and know what to write about with outside evidence, context, so on and so forth. More on that in a second. The other half of the rubric is more focused on skills, which is good for us, right? It means we don't need to memorize everything from history anymore. We just need to know the big, broad developments, and we need to be practicing these skills of organizing documents, using them to answer and make a thesis statement, and evaluating the point of view or intended audience of a document. So thinking about it that way, there's really 2 things you need to prepare, right? You need to know enough content to bring it into your essay as needed, and you need to really understand what these skills look like when they're done well. So first, how should you review the content? Well, the biggest thing is that you should study broad developments from each era that you've studied or each unit in your AP course. And if you're like, I have no idea what the big ideas or broad developments are, here are a few places you can look. First, go back to your textbook, read the intro section of each chapter or unit that you probably skipped, right? Students always skip the intro, and I don't understand why, because that's where they give you all the answers. So whether you're reading AMSCO or Stearns or any of the other textbooks, go back to the beginning of Unit 1, and there will probably be a couple of paragraphs or even a few pages going through like a preview of what's about to happen in Unit 1. Those are your big, broad developments. So in world history, it might say something like, powerful land-based states rose and benefited from complex regional trade routes. That's your big idea. And so now what you want to do is you want to look for content, specific examples that support those big ideas. Look for and know about some powerful land-based states and understand what those complex regional trade routes were and how they benefited those states. Boom, right? The second thing, if you're in AP World History, is you can go back and watch. I did a whole Marco Learning course, a 9-part class for free, where I went over the big ideas. The cool thing is, if you're not in WAP, Marco Learning has offered those for the other courses as well. So go to marcolearning.com, look for the student support section. You will find they've all been recorded and saved, these free review courses that expert teachers like me have been doing over the last few weeks. Lastly, if you're really like, I still don't know what I need to know for the test, here's what you should do. It's like, you can find the teacher key, and this is not a secret. Look at the AP course exam and description. So what this means, let me move my face out of the way, is that the College Board gives and posts publicly exactly what is supposed to be covered in each AP course. So if you go Google AP US History, AP European History, course exam and description, you will then see a PDF that you can download. It's very large. Then you do Control F to find 1.1. That means Unit 1, Section 1. Or if you're in US History, you might go to 3.1, right? Because the test starts at Unit 3. That is going to then walk you through, sentence by sentence, what you should know. Now, it's a lot of information, but you can skim it to get an idea. You'll start to see some phrases that are repeated. You'll start to see developments that keep popping up, and you'll get a sense of what the College Board thinks is important. It'll be worded in something along the lines of like, students should be able to explain blah, blah, blah by proving that, and then they'll give you some more specific things to look into. So again, if you're not sure what the big idea of your course is, these are some places you can go to find them. Okay, the next question is, how do we review content? So by going back to our notes and basically creating notes of our notes, if that makes sense. So what we do is we go and create simplified notes that we can access very easily on the exam. So a lot of students are like, great, I'm gonna have the whole textbook in front of me. Again, you only have 45 minutes. So what you can be doing over these next few weeks is consolidating your notes down into the simplest format possible. Think about this like a note card that you might get on a math test with formulas, right? You're not gonna put everything on there, but you should have enough information on there that it will be helpful and you'll be able to find what you're looking for. There are two things that I suggest doing. One, you could print out that course exam and description that I just talked about, that PDF. It's large, but you could still do it. And you could just annotate it, right? It literally will say, like for WAP students, be able to evaluate methods of government in the Song Dynasty in China. And so you could just write on top of that, take some notes and talk about things like bureaucracy, scholar gentry, whatever, right? So you could just straight up annotate the CED and then have that as a packet next to you while you're taking the test. The other thing you can do is you can create thematic charts. So at least in AP World History, we use SPICE T themes. That is society, politics, interaction with the environment, culture, economy, and technology. And you can create SPICE T charts for each era of your course. Here's what one might look like. So this is for AP World. In AP World, you need to include regions, right? Because we're studying the whole world. In US History, you might still include maybe different regions of the US, same in Europe. It kind of depends on what you think would be the most helpful. But what you would do is you would have one of these for each of the time periods covered in your class. So for world history, you would have one for 1200 to 1450, 1450 to 1750, and so on. And essentially, you're going through your notes, you're going through the textbook, you're going through anything you would be using to review, and then you are adding relevant information where it belongs on this chart. So let's say you were looking at a chart and you were making one for the period of 1200 to 1450, and you're focusing for now on filling out the column on the Middle East, right? What you would do here is you would fill out major states. So you might say the Abbasid dynasty. And then you look through, like, what are they doing in terms of social hierarchy, right? You might talk about Muslims being kind of on top of society, although other, religions and other ethnicities were treated relatively well. Underneath culture, you might put the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, that sort of thing. So use this as a template to basically just curate the notes you've been taking all year and put them in a place that will be a little bit easier to sort through on the test. That way, when you pull up the DBQ, let's say in world history, you pull up the DBQ and you see that it's all about the Silk Road and camels or whatever in between 1200 and 1450. great. You just pull this spice chart out and have that one in front of you. If you type it, you can even have it pulled up on your computer on another screen. And that's where you can go to kind of settle in, remind yourself of what you're talking about. Those are the notes that you can really use during the test without having to frantically flip through your textbook. Okay. How should you practice writing, right? Because knowing the content is one thing, but being able to write it in DBQ is another. There's a few tips that I have. The biggest one is just look at a lot of documents. Like maybe do a document a day, 5 a week, something. Say every day I'm going to go onto the College Board website. I'm going to go look at some practice multiple choice questions, right? Even though the test isn't multiple choice, every multiple choice question is linked to a document, and those documents are still really valuable. And so make sure that you're looking at old stuff, especially images. They've already told us that at least one of the 5 documents will be something that's not text. So it might be a graph, it might be a painting, something along those lines. And so just looking at stimulus-based multiple choice questions is still really helpful because you'll be looking at a document and then you can read the question and even just see what the right answer is and get an idea of like what the College Board expects you to get out of that document that then you'll do on your own on a DBQ. The other way to look at a lot of documents is to just go and look at old DBQs. So for those of you who are not aware, the College Board releases and posts online for everyone to see all of the old free response questions. So again, you just go to Google and you Google AP World History free response questions, and then you will see a link for every single year, I think going back to around 2002 or 2003. Now, some of these documents are older, and so they're from an older format, but they still are an essay question linked to a bunch of documents. And so this will give you a good idea. If you look at a bunch of them over the past, let's say 5 years, you'll start to get an idea of what types of questions the College Board asks. And again, the more you're looking at the prompts and the way they word it, and the more that you're looking at documents they use, the more comfortable you're going to feel on test day. Okay, but it's not just about looking at documents, right? We have to like understand what the documents mean. So how can you practice writing? Now, one, if you're still in class and you're still able to talk to your AP history teacher, hopefully they're giving you some practice writing and they can give you feedback. But if you can't, or if you just want more practice, here are 2 things you can do. One, you can actually just read sample essays from previous years. So on that same site that I mentioned, where you go look at the old DBQ prompts, they also then post sample responses. So you'll look for, like in 2019, sample responses for the DBQ. Typically what the College Board does is you open up that PDF and you'll see it's actually like a kid's handwriting, right? And they typically provide around 3 sample essays. Normally 1 is a really strong essay, one's kind of in the middle, and one's relatively weak. And so even if it's not a 5 document DBQ, maybe there's more, even if the rubric is slightly different this year than it has been in previous years, you'll still get a really good idea of what it looks like to integrate a document into your argument, or what it looks like to evaluate a document's point of view, what it looks like to write a good thesis statement. All of those things have not changed. And so instead of burning yourself out writing 4 DBQs a week, you can at least first just go back and read some sample DBQs from previous years that the College Board has said are good. Now, just be warned that the rubric has changed, right? So there are some things that the AP exam asked students to do in past years that you don't have to do anymore. So if you see something weird, like you might see students saying, one additional document that would be helpful is, just ignore that, right? That was a weird thing that the College Board used to make students do that they don't anymore. The last point on that is that if you keep scrolling down in that sample responses PDF, you'll find where the College Board has written an explanation for why they gave that student every point they gave them. So if you're not sure if it's a good thesis, scroll down and you'll see they'll say, for sample 3A, we gave them the thesis point because, and they will tell you exactly why they got the point. Okay, if you want to just straight up practice DBQs on your own, but you're like, there aren't any 5 document DBQs because it's new. Well, here's some math for you. Just take the old DBQs that maybe had 7 documents and subtract 2 documents. And then you'll have a 5 document DBQ. You could even get fancy and roll a dice out of 7, right, to see which documents you're going to use, right? You can create your own DBQs. You can even go back and look at old just LEQ questions and then brainstorm like what documents might show up on this test or on this essay. Look through the stimulus-based multiple choice and find your own 2 or 3 documents that might relate to that question, right? Those are all good ways to practice to get into the mindset of like, what kind of questions are they going to ask and how can I be ready to sort through these documents? If you're an AP World History student, you're in luck because on my website, I've been posting practice DBQs. So I've already posted 3 practice DBQs that are in the new 5-document format. So to find those, you just go to antisocialstudies.org. But for other students, I'm going to give you some other resources in a second that you could be following because other teachers are doing the same thing. So on that, what resources are out there for you? Besides my YouTube channel, which hopefully you're subscribing to, because I'm going to be posting more videos. For AP World History, my website is a great resource, antisocialstudies.org. You will find templates. So these SPICE T charts that I've been telling you to make for AP World History, I've actually made templates that already list out the major states. So all you have to do is fill in the themes. So you'll find those on my antisocialstudies.org website, and you'll also find practice DBQs, unit review packets, all that sort of stuff. Other WAP resources are Heimler's History on YouTube. If y'all don't already know who Heimler is, like, where have you been? He's amazing. He's really phenomenal for content review. I'm not affiliated with him at all. I'm just a big fan. So if you're really worried about the content review, he is still putting out new videos that are short, they're to the point, and they are exactly correlated to what the AP exam says it's going to cover. The last thing for all AP History courses is you can just use the College Board website. The College Board has its own YouTube where they've been posting reviews. They've been posting reviews of the big units. They have expert teachers doing that as well. So if content is the thing you're concerned about, the College Board YouTube channel and Heimler's History are going to be really, really helpful. For US and Euro, Tom Ritchie is someone who is always posting new content. You can find him on YouTube. And Marco Learning that I mentioned before is putting out a lot of really helpful resources. So marcolearning.com has access to a lot of free review courses. It also has links to other student support courses that are a little bit smaller and more personalized that you do have to pay for. One of them is taught by me, but there's also a ton of free stuff out there. Lastly, the Marco Learning YouTube page channel is something you should subscribe to. I am actually this Saturday, so Saturday, April 26th, I am going to be going live on the Marco Learning YouTube page where I am going to have 45 minutes and I'm literally going to write a DBQ live in front of you. And I'm going to walk you through step by step what I'm doing, how I'm approaching it, all that good stuff. So you should definitely check that out. Okay, next up is going to be an entire video just on the thesis statement. So make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel because what I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks is releasing these short videos. The next, let's say 6 or 7 are going to be videos specifically about each point of the rubric. So first the thesis statement, next, what does it mean to use a document, so on and so forth. So I hope this is helpful. Please subscribe. Please go find me on Instagram. I'm really active at Anti-Social Studies. And good luck studying.